Hey folks, it's Florida Deere. Thanks for joining me today. Today's video will be the final installation of this 3-video series on the restoration of this 50-inch deck. A lot of the things we do on this 50-inch deck, you could also do on a 46-inch deck. There are some slight differences between the two, but they are pretty similar overall. And so this is the deck that I repaired before. You can see the little repair there, which you're really not going to see once the spindle's on, and basically it would be hard to see anyways because of the location in the deck. But it came out pretty decent. There are a couple spots right here, some stuff here that did come out in the sandblasting, another spot here. These parts weren't obvious before I brought it in, but it wasn't surprising either. I think that's just a scratch. And so, again, these decks this one's probably 40 something years old, or at least upper 30s. So it's been around a while. Mowed its fair share of lawns. Again, these are drain holes right here, the additional fourth hole there. But this part is good, the spindle mounting area and all of them, and that's sort of critical. And again, this repair came out, I would say, reasonably good, and especially for the location that's at. So anyways, I will get started on assembling it. All right, folks, so this is the hardware going back on the deck. These are rebuilt spindles with the JD 9296 bearings, so OEM. All this stuff has been sandblasted and powder coated. Right here, these are new pins that'll go through there for the adjustments. I could have just used the little ones, but these are kind of pretty convenient, so it's sort of a modern touch. And then you have your wheels, blades, belt, and some additional hardware. I'm missing a pulley, an idler pulley that I'll have to buy, so I'll get that in a few days. So here, other than the actual organizing everything to get everything ready to assemble, this is the first part I decided to put on. Seems pretty obvious, is the actual spindle assemblies themselves. And I was thinking I got shorter bolts than I needed, but actually these were plenty long enough to use all the threads and not stick too far down into the deck. You did have to kind of tamp these spindles down a little bit so they sat snugly onto the deck. So there was some space at first that I had to do some tapping, as you can see here. A little persuasion goes a long way sometimes. Okay, so all those carriage bolts are on, and then we have the nuts that, as you can see, they don't go way through there, but they're enough to grab all the threads that they need to on the carriage bolt. So to me, that's just fine. So we'll flip this thing up and tighten those things down. Okay, so these spin fine. and they spin without touching each other. This one spins without touching each other too, although it's dealing with wood boring bees here. So this is close, but not an issue. But this, now this comes, oh gosh, I think comes around there too, so that needs to be beaten up a little bit. And this needs to be beaten back this way. So this will go up this way towards the camera, and then that one, well, I don't know what the heck that was. I probably should have just ripped that off. All right, well, it's a project inside of a project I didn't intend to do. And we'll get working on that. Well, I ain't gonna lie, I did figure on the blade installation to be a little easier than this, but that thing was apparently squished over a bit more. This sucker is. It does have the clearance now, as you can see, as well as this. And for good measure, I just tapped that because it looked like it was pretty close. If you remember in the other video, I think it was the first video, this was all waffled and folded under, and I didn't have him welded. I basically forgot to ask him to do that, and I don't know that it's actually necessary, because as long as he doesn't hit anything, although when I say he, I mean whoever buys the tractor, and as soon as they hit something here, if they hit something hard enough, it will bend it to where the blade will hit. But I don't think there's a lot of, well, there's a fair amount there, but I don't know that there's less here. So I don't think the deck is supposed to be much further out from where you see it there anyway, so we'll see. I'll tighten that up, flip it over, and get some more stuff done. Okay, so once again, we're going to do something easy. Hopefully it is easy. We're just going to install these deck adjustments, and I wonder if I'll end up reinstalling them later, just because it's easy to install the wheels with these things off. I don't know, we'll find out. But the hardware will be out of the way, so that part's done. And again, this isn't factory items. These are, I would say these are upgrades. I'm not trying to make it original. I mean, as original as possible, but within reason, but not, I don't really, if there's a better way to do something, I need to replace it. I figure using the better way. This isn't a restoration for show project, it's a restoration for use project. So I like these clips. I think they were $2 or $3 a piece. So it's a couple bucks spent, but I think it's money well spent to make those deck adjustments easy. That was it. All right, folks, so we're just going to put on the front roller, which just goes on like this. You would put on one of the spacers, the front roller itself, and your other spacer. Line it up. And then this sort of cotter pin looking thing goes over here, and that goes through there. And then I have a washer and a lock washer and a nut for the other side. It's like a really weird awkward arrangement here. As a 7/16, I'm probably gonna have to go get a, maybe not, wrench to hold the back end of that. But that's how it goes together. It's that simple. And then we'll put the pull pins in next. So before we go over the install, I want to point out that I was trying to use these because they looked a little nicer than these. I did hit these with some steel wool, and I will use these springs. I don't think there's any difference between the springs. As you can see, maybe these are a little bit bigger. Well, they're about the same size. But the issue is the hole is right here at the end, and the hole for these is right about here. See, there's a huge difference in there. I kept putting it on here and trying to figure that out, and I sometimes do this, but sometimes you can't just use, like, I guess this would be an upgraded version for a later tractor that has maybe a different setup. Maybe it doesn't have this. Although the 48-inch deck I have doesn't have this either, or doesn't have it, and this one does, so I don't know. But anyway, so you have to use, on this particular style, you have to use the one with the hole for the cotter pin or the hairpin cotter further up, not at the end. So we'll get into that. So in this last clip, I'm just getting the draft arm fasteners squared away on the deck. And this was, like I think I said before, was a little bit easy once I got the right parts in my hand. And I'm happy that I just have some extra parts hanging around. So there is something to be said for, you know, keeping parts that you think you might not need. There we go. Hook them right in. Boy, that was a lot more trouble than I thought it would be. That's what they're supposed to look like. Recoil back in there after you put the mule drive on. Alright, so the next item, we're going to put back together these wheels. Yeah, I took them apart, and so we're just going to put them back together. And so the next clip you'll see the wheels will be on there, and I'll let you know if there's any issues, but they should basically come apart, and or rather go back together the same way they came apart. Okay folks, as you can see, all the wheels are on. This part of the hardware is on. Wheels, the back wheels. And the hammer for some persuasion on the draft arm, because once they do the powder coating, it goes on there pretty thick, so it just needs some persuasion to get through there. I did use hairpin cotters here instead of regular cotter pins. These are pretty thick. I don't think they're going to slip out. We'll check it out though and mow with it and stuff. See how it does. If it need be, we'll do the cotter pins instead of the hairpin cotters, but it seems to be turning out pretty nicely so far. And I think the last thing we have to do is install the hardware that goes with this idler, which includes the spring, and there's some mounting stuff right here too. I'll have to collect all that and get ready to put that together. I think just about everything else is done though, so we're getting close. Hey folks. Okay, so we are completely done this deck. The one part I didn't show you in the reinstallation was this idler pulley and how its bracket is anchored here and how it's you know, mounted there and stuff like that. We have a couple new parts. We had a new spacer, new idler pulley, And I think they had one other new item. I can't remember what it was. Oh, the spring. The spring is new too. And so I will give you the diagram right here so you can see what that is supposed to look like. But as you can see, the rest of the deck is complete. We have the spindles. I did use hairpin cotters for these. You can use cotters for these or hairpin cotters. I don't think these things will easily come out, so I don't think that's an issue. And again, I have these quick release items here, and blades are on, rollers are up front, the hook's here, got the draft arm is all squared away, so it is ready to mow. So hey folks, before I let you go, you thought I was probably going to end the video right there, and so did I, but I wanted to go over these parts real quick. These were the JD parts that I needed to complete the restoration, and this is a decal, part number M89504. The little warning decal, which is part number M118610. The idler pulley is AM37249. And you have a bushing that goes in the mechanism that holds the idler pulley onto the tractor, and that is M41966 part number. The new spring I got was M45123. Now those are all made in America, along with this last item, which is the spacers. There's a big spacer and then two little spacers that go inside the spindle between the bearings. And it's, you can't see it, but I believe it's M73515. And then also we needed 6 of these, these are made in Romania. They've been made in Romania for some time now. And I think that's a pretty reasonable country to have stuff made into. I think bearings is one of their things that they do well. And that is JD9296. And that pretty much wraps up. I had some other assorted hardware that I use, you know, nuts and bolts and the pins that hold the, you know, anti-scalp wheels in place, stuff like that I've shown you during the video, so you get the picture on that. But anyways, if you guys did like the video, you thought it was helpful, please hit the like button. That would help me out. And if you want to see more videos about John Deere garden tractors and John Deere 1 Series tractors, you can hit the subscribe button. And I appreciate you watching. I hope this series was helpful. Good night.